This morning, we welcome Mark Bernstein into our pulpit as a guest speaker. He's a former staff member of the Central East region of the UUA and currently serves as adjunct staff for the region, where he offers sermons and consultative services to area congregations. He's a 30-year member of the UU Church of Delaware County in Media, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. Recently at Channing, Mr. Bernstein has assisted us as a consultant for our church structure project, and in 2012, he helped us navigate the process of crafting our current mission statement. Let's welcome him warmly.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Ostara. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for working with me and preparing for this morning. It's wonderful to be with you. The call to worship are the words of Margaret Weiss. Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the part that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and others familiar, and all welcoming you here now to this moment. Come, let us worship together. The opening hymn is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please rise in body or in spirit.
In the voice of Leah Derlin-Jones, as we light this flame, we remember friends and loved ones near and far, and we give thanks. As the fire burns brightly, we open our minds and hearts to new ways of being, and we feel alive. As the room glows with warmth and kindness, we extend our circle ever wider to welcome those who want to come in, and we know love.
While all of us are young at heart, I do see one person who is young of age, and I'm glad that you're here. This is the time for all ages. In a time long ago, in a land dotted with small towns and sprawling countryside, there lived a little boy named Joel. Joel had curly brown hair, bright eyes full of wonder, and a heart eager to help others. He lived with his family in a cozy home by the edge of a bustling town called Bethany. One sunny morning, as Joel was helping his mother in the garden, a dusty traveler walked by. The traveler looked tired, with clothes worn from a long journey and a face lined with the marks of the hot sun. Joel watched as the man paused, looking longingly at their well, where cool water glittered invitingly. Seeing the stranger's weary state, Joel's mother whispered to him, "Remember what you've been taught. When you welcome a stranger, you might be welcoming an angel without knowing it." Joel ran up to the man and said, "Hello, you look thirsty. Would you like some water? We have plenty." The dusty traveler smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners, grateful for the boy's offer. "Thank you kindly," he said, as he followed Joel to the well. As the traveler drank the cold water, Joel's curiosity grew. He opened his mouth and said, "I come from a place far, far away. I've been traveling for months, visiting town after town, but I've seldom encountered such warmth and welcome." Joel's mother came forward basket of fresh bread and cheese. She handed it to the man and said, "You must be hungry. Please have some food. Where are you headed?" The traveler gratefully accepted the food and shared his story. He was in search of a new home, a place where he could settle down and live in peace. He talked of the lands he had seen, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. Moved by his story, Joel's family decided to do more. They invited the traveler to stay with them for a few days to rest before continuing on his journey. The traveler accepted, and in the days that followed, he became like a member of their family, sharing meals and stories and laughter. During the traveler's stay, Joel and his family learned many valuable lessons about kindness, compassion, and the joy of new friendships. Joel's friends from Bethany came by to meet the traveler, and soon they too offered their help, bringing blankets and clothes and food to make his stay more comfortable. The traveler shared tales of ancient times, stories from far-off lands, and wisdom beyond his years. The people of Bethany listened intently, and their hearts grew warmer with each word. Joel noticed a change in the townspeople. They smiled more, greeted one another with kinder words, and there was a new. When the time came for the traveler to depart, the whole town gathered to say goodbye. There were tears and hugs, for the traveler had touched the lives of everyone he met. Joel and his family promised to hold dear the lessons he had taught them, and they waved as he disappeared into the horizon. Joel realized through this experience that no act of kindness, no matter how small, goes unnoticed. The stranger had become a friend, a teacher, and a reminder that we never know the impact we can have on someone's life just by opening our hearts and our homes.
Please remain seated for our prayer hymn, number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
If you look at the bottom of the page, we're going to sing this through 3 times. Thank you.
In the silence that follows the spoken prayer, you're invited forward to light a candle for any joys or concerns you hold in your heart this morning. We pray with words from Anne Mason. Spirit of life, your very presence among us is what gives us connection. Help us to sense that beneath our feet is the strength we need to keep us grounded. Help us to feel that behind our back is the protection we need to feel safe facing our fears. Help us to know that before our eyes lies the beauty we seek, to feel astounded. Help us to lift our heads high enough to be aware of the vastness of our sky and of our spirit. And help us to know that within our hearts lies the love we need to complete the circle of connection in our lives. We are grateful, Spirit of Love, for this day. May we use all of these gifts, our feet, our backs, our eyes, our heads, and our hearts, to bring love into this hurting world, this world which we so value, which we cherish. Amen. I light now a candle for the joys and concerns of those beloveds joining us virtually. And I light a final candle for all else that we hold in our hearts and our minds this morning. If your heart is hurting, know that your community is here to help. Please reach out with any needs. In some traditional cultures, the circulation of things, giving, was practiced as a kind of ritual of keeping the generous abundance of the universe flowing. Likewise, we may think of our offering practice as an enacted prayer for abundance and generosity of spirit. And equally important, through our gifts of time, talent, and treasure, we contribute to the practical running of our church, which cannot happen without our support. Your offerings are gratefully received. For those of you watching the service online, you may contribute to a virtual offering plate using the donate button on our website or by mailing a check to the church office. Will the ushers please come forward? that you give and all that you do for our church community and its wider concerns, we give thanks.
This morning's reading is an excerpt from the book Radical Hospitality by Father Daniel Homan and Lonnie Collins Pratt. They write, "Here is the core of hospitality. May I know you better? Will you come closer, please? No, it will not be easy, but make no mistake about it. Your life depends on this saving stranger coming to you and stretching your tight little heart. Hospitality is a personal response to your own need to connect with other people. This need is at the core of what it means to be human. Your entire humanity, your identity itself, is wrapped up in your need to connect. The real question is not how dangerous the stranger is. The real question is, how dangerous will I become if I don't learn to be more open?" The words of Father Daniel Homan and Lonnie Collins Pratt. Please rise in body or in spirit for hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Please be seated, unless you want to give me a standing ovation afterwards. Thank you for the beautiful music, Gabby. The names have been deleted to protect the innocent and the not so innocent. Several years ago, while I was working full-time for the Central East region, I was invited by the minister of a rather large congregation in Maryland, not this one, and I'm not telling you which one it is, so don't ask me later. I also, by the way, know who the vice presidential candidate will be, but I'm not telling you that either. It's Wes Moore. So I was invited to come to a worship service anonymously. She had recently begun her ministry at this church and had the sense that members of the congregation were not as welcoming as they could be. So I was to play the role of a mild-mannered visitor interested in sitting in on a worship service and seeing what it was all about. I agreed to take on the assignment, and I showed up for the second of their two services. As I entered, I had to search for someone who would acknowledge my presence. And I finally spotted two people behind what I assumed was the welcome table. They did greet me warmly. They handed me a name tag and directed me to the sanctuary where the service would be starting in a few minutes. I didn't want to sit down right away, so I decided to explore the building a bit and strolled around, passing scores of congregants along the way. In fact, that was my intention. I purposely looked at folks as I passed them, smiling and trying to be as noticeable as I could. I recall that not one person smiled back. Most did not even look in my direction. And no one said hello or tried to engage me in conversation. Feeling quite alone, I quickly made my way to the sanctuary, seeking solace in one of the pews. After a few minutes, someone sat down directly behind me leaned forward and asked me if I was visiting for the first time. When I responded in the affirmative, she said, "Welcome." I said, "It's too late." No, I'm just kidding. I didn't really say it's too late. After the lovely worship service, I made my way again down the hallway and I entered a room where folks congregated to drink coffee and eat cookies. I grabbed a cup. I was instructed to take a yellow cup, signifying my visitor status, and a cookie, and I went to a corner of the room where I could be clearly seen. I remember standing there for about 5 minutes or so. It seemed a lot longer, with my cup and my cookie, and not one person came over to me. This is a true story. You have to believe me. It was obvious by my positioning that I was not with anyone. I even raised my yellow coffee cup up higher so that people could see I was a visitor. Nothing worked. Eventually, I gave up, finished my coffee and my cookie, and headed back down the hallway to meet up with the minister and the board to whom I was to report on my welcoming experience. Well, it may not have come as a surprise to the minister. I believe many members of the board, as I recall, were quite shocked that their congregation was not as welcoming as they thought they were. I also remember thinking that if this had been a real experience and I was someone who was seriously considering this congregation, I would not have stepped into that building again. During my tenure with the region and now as adjunct staff with the region, I have experienced this kind of reception over and over again. Maybe it's me. It is the rule rather than the exception. I stand by the statement that I made years ago and still believe Unitarian Universalist congregations are not as welcoming as they think they are and are certainly not as welcoming as they need to be. Do you still love me? But hospitality, particularly radical hospitality, begins with but goes far beyond merely welcoming the stranger. In their book entitled Radical Hospitality, Benedict's Way of Love, an excerpt of which I read this morning, authors Father Daniel Homan and Lonnie Collins Pratt envision radical hospitality as something that goes beyond mere politeness and surface-level interactions. It emphasizes the idea of welcoming others with an open heart and a generous spirit, viewing every encounter as an opportunity for personal growth and a way to connect with our spiritual selves. Radical hospitality enables us to create more inclusive communities, better live out our promises to each other, and reach out to those who are marginalized. Many of the ideas that I will share with you this morning are drawn from this inspirational book. Saint Benedict of Nursia was a 6th century Italian Christian monk, writer, and theologian who wrote The Rule of Saint Benedict, a book of rules or guidelines for his monks to follow and for the daily life and organization of monastic communities. The rule has endured for the past 1,500 years, and its teachings among the monastic community are still followed today. They have great relevance for Unitarian Universalists who seek harmony among ourselves and our communities, and the hope that we can encourage others to join with us. In the Benedictine way of radical hospitality, we are expected to provide a profound and unconditional welcome extended to all regardless of their background, social status, or circumstances. We claim this in our worship service introductions, do we not? I hear this in congregations where I am privileged to offer sermons. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever you believe, whomever you love, you are welcome here. But do we truly honor this pledge? We are, after all, human beings, and we are inclined to feel more comfortable with people we know, people who are like us. And as human beings, we feel less comfortable when we are with people who have different ideas and interests, different points of view, different backgrounds, different perspectives. Over the years, I have worked with many congregations who have prized being with, quote, like-minded persons. One congregation even put it into their mission statement. Marilyn Sewell is a writer, leader, activist, and speaker. She is the Minister Emerita of the First Unitarian Church of Portland, Oregon, where she served as the senior minister for 17 years before she retired. As she sees it, we need to not just talk about opening the doors, we need to open our hearts. She writes, I speak of radical hospitality today because there is a world out there that needs home, that needs community, and I want us to stretch spiritually, to stretch ourselves open. I know that when we take the risk, we'll make mistakes, but our lives will grow so much richer and deeper because we have extended ourselves. And she concludes, our creativity will blossom, for we will not be stuck with our old assumptions, our narrow ways of perceiving reality. Our world will grow wider and softer and more trusting. Hospitality is not a mere social grace. It is a spiritual and ethical issue. It is an issue involving what it means to be human. To receive others is to expose ourselves to all sorts of frightful dangers of attachment and rejection. Hospitality acknowledges the vulnerability of being human, both my humanity and that of the stranger. And yet, our Unitarian Universalist principles, if they still exist, compel us to engage in radical hospitality. We take pride in our principle of respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But what does it mean? How do we show it? If I feel ignored, if I feel alone in a church full of people, am I expected to understand or to believe in that principle? If I don't feel connected to those around me, can I have faith in the principle that calls us to respect the interpersonal web of life of which we are all a part? The rule of St. Benedict teaches us that hospitality, rather than being something you achieve, is something you enter. It is not something you do as much as someone you become. You try and you fail, and you try again. You make room for one person at a time, and each of these choices of the heart stretches your ability to receive others. That is how we grow more hospitable, by welcoming one person at a time when the opportunity is given to us. And this practice of hospitality is not easy. There are hurdles, there are enemies of hospitality. And among them are fear, suspicion, and self-centeredness. Many of us are unwilling to trust others to give us what we need. We grow callous and hesitant from the fear of being rejected. So we keep people at a distance. And for many of us, we are so caught up in our own lives, in our own problems or struggles to just live, that we lose sight of others, that we lose sight of what else is important. There is a market in Mexico City where an old man named Podolamo is selling onions. There are 20 strings of onions in front of him when an American walks up and asks, "How much for a string of onions?" 10 cents, says the old man. "How much for all of it, the whole 20 strings?" "I will not sell you the 20 strings, replies Podolamo. "Why not?" asks the American. "Aren't you here to sell onions?" "No, I am here to live my life. I love this market. I love the children. I love when my friends come by and talk about their babies and their crops. That is my life, and for that reason, I sit here with my 20 strings of onions. If I sell all my onions to one customer, then my day is over, and I have lost my life that I love, and that I will not do." As members of a congregation, do we live our lives selling onions, or do we enjoy our lives with our fellow congregants? Do we pay more attention to our own thoughts and needs, to what we have to get done, or do we reach out to others, even the stranger, to engage with them, to listen to their thoughts, and in so doing, perhaps meet their needs? Listening has been called the key to St. Benedict's entire spiritual teaching, the core meaning of hospitality. It is a special kind of deep attentiveness to all of life. Benedict's rule is a guide to sharpening the ears of the heart. Sharpening the ears of the heart. Listen, St. Benedict tells us, listen. It will sometimes break your heart, but it will also give you a heart. Authors Homan and Pratt tell us that hospitality is a way to counter the thousands of times another human being had felt less than human because others didn't listen. When you listen, you get past yourself. The focus switches from the self to the other. If we do no other thing than train ourselves to listen to others they advise, we will have taken great steps to hospitality. But St. Benedict doesn't call us to listen on the surface. He wants us to listen way down deep. This is from the book on radical hospitality. You know the place. It's the same place that weeps at the sight of a newborn, the same place that falls silent at the edge of a mountain, the same place that reaches for a falling sparrow. Listen from that place. Listening is at the heart of Benedictine spirituality because it is the only way to see through the eyes of another. When we listen to another, we catch a slight glimpse of their soul. We create an open page where they are free to write their story. Welcoming, connecting, listening, reaching out, these are the keys to radical hospitality. These are the ways that Unitarian Universalists should be with one another and with the stranger. I close with one more quote from Father Homan and Lonnie Collins Pratt. What matters is that we stretch our hearts open and draw near to each other. It is the way of hospitality, the way of life, and it is in this remote place where we have awakened to find ourselves the only way home. So may it be. Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. benediction are the words of Reverend Bob Doss. This is the benediction, the closing words that we say every week in my home congregation. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. And for those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Blessed be.